Right. Next video here is we've got our layers set up on our template file, a .dwt file. Let me save mine real quick. I think I need to just do a quick save as. This is me with my layers created, but I haven't done a save yet since I created my layers. And so I wanted to do a save as just to make sure I save this as a template file. I created it from a template from that when we outfitted our drawing with our layers, let me go back to the start menu real quick. We had created a new layer. Sorry, we created a new template from, I had browsed my templates and I chose this AutoCAD template is where the one that I have up on screen is what you probably use when we created our layers. This one, of course, when I opened that in CAD, it wanted to create a child from that template, and that's why currently at the top of mine, it shows me that I'm a DWG at the very, very top. So I know that I haven't saved this as a template file again yet. It's ready to make into a drawing. So this is normally when I would have first opened it, I would have saved it how I wanted it. I have to actually select, it wants to create a child of a drawing, but I actually want to keep it as a parent. So DWT, I drove down and found my folder to save this, which I was saving mine in my general area. I have my in-class one that I'm working on. So yeah, I'm going to save this. I'm replacing mine right now. You might have not get that, but I didn't make a video in class today, so I just wanted to re-upload this video. I'm okay with this. Save all layers or as unreconciled is fine right now. So just I'm going to say okay. Now I know that I've got a DWT file here, right, with my layers. That's essentially where we start this one. What we did in class, I just want to create a video for this, is the layout and page setup, right? So I have these two layouts that are unformatted. I definitely have a viewport on the wrong layer that I can visually see now, and I've got a dash line that represents paper and some unformatted paper space. On two different layouts, I have two unformatted, and that's just the default when you open new drawings or templates. They're going to give you at least two to start with, and I can always add more. You know, some print packs might have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 sheets in it. So we're only dealing with two right here. Okay, so in class together, what we're going to do is format this thing. So the first thing I did is start actually just playing with the viewport or the window into model space that is here. The first thing I did was push my viewport to the correct layer because it doesn't come in with the correct layers. I've only now established the correct layers. So the other thing I want to just reiterate here is that generally when you get in here, you don't have any palettes maybe that are docked or anything, but I always dock under my view tab. I always like to dock, all of these palettes that I have access to. And this is going to be a really important palette, actually. This view tab and these palettes, I'm going to come back to some of these, especially that one, Design Center. But right now, what I always get amazed is how powerful some of these icons are, and they're just so buried that you just forget where things are. But this one is at least front and center. I feel like on my ribbon, I click that, and it will probably show up anywhere in your drawing space. It's just the one that I like to have docked for access to modifications. So I just dock this thing on my in this case on my left. I think I showed you in class the reason why I do that is because heading towards Inventor, another program, I always have a model browser up in a different program. And so um, uh, I am used to having some of my model space eaten up with properties and model browser stuff. There are some critical things that I keep docked for quick access. And in CAD, the one that I mainly dock that I pull out that doesn't default dock is that properties panel. So now I just get the properties of all kinds of stuff. So I'll show you, we'll even use some of that now. So now that I've got my properties panel docked, I go back to my layout and I really want to push this. So I think I showed the paper space to get into the model space from this paper space. which shows up down here on my status bar that I'm in paper space. It just says paper down here in the lower right. If I click in here, though, this changes to model space, and I'm essentially drawing in model space here, even though I look like I'm in paper space. Really, anything I do here is going to modify the model that I might have here. And I can see my browser kind of it starts to turn into the normal browser that might be in model space too. So the difference is I might be applying a scale to it in this position that I'm not actually applying to the model space. This is a little bit confusing, but I keep track of the scale right down here on my status bar. This decimal is kicking out this scale. I think I told you once I double click into here, I can see that the viewport goes dark and bold. That means I'm actively in the viewport in the window peering into the model space. If I scroll now here, though, what I'm doing is I'm actually changing scales and how it actually fits within this window. And this is actually where I generally apply the scales to my drawing through this window. And I don't go back here to model space and start changing the scale here. This always stays 1:1. When it's black in the background, do not change the scale of it. This is where I would change scales over here. So I think what I showed you is that the first thing I want to, and then if I double click out of there, I'm back on just like back on like I can access the viewport there itself and grip and resize it. I think I did this where I grip these, resize my viewport. That I'm doing out here when I double click out here in the space of in the paper space. And then of course to get back into the model, I have to double click in here and see that big bold uh, border show up that I know I'm in there. So double click back and forth. You also can tell because once you click in here, my navigation shows up, and uh, some of the stuff from the model space starts to show up in here. So I'm back to here. What I want to do though is push that to the right layer. We created a viewport layer, so I'm just going to select this. The reason why I have it, I could change it here because I've got my quick properties on. Maybe I'll turn those off real quick. Turn that off. That's my quick properties turned off because I'm going to use this main properties panel right now. So I'm going to select this. Great. All I do is come over here. These are all kind of selectable boxes. The one that I use this one a lot to push stuff to the correct layer. So this came in on layer 0 in the default. That's the only layer that existed before we created layers. Now we can push it to a layer like this. I push it to my viewport layer, which we is why this now shows up as yellow, because that is my viewport layer, and my viewport layer is also not set up to not print. So it won't show up on my PDFs, it won't show up on my printing, nor will the grid in that viewport show up on your printing. It's kind of like the grid here. This isn't going to, I'm not going to talk about printing from model space, but it doesn't show up. It's just for, I think it's just for keeping your bearings and knowing where things are. And we can also turn it off. So what I want to do though, and what we did in class was I needed something in model space to kind of help me navigate where that window is looking through into here. Like right now, I can see that it's looking into a grid that has nothing on it, and so it's hard to get your bearings on where it is because this is such a vast drawing environment. So what we did is let me see. Yeah, this is good. I just had to do a quick double check. What we did is I drew a simple circle. So I'm going to go back to my home tab here in CAD, and I just picked a center radius circle, which and I came down here close to the XY because I don't know how much space this is between the actual origin and where I'm drawing. If I zoom in a little bit here, but I'm going to drop this circle, and I think I made it wants to know a radius, so I picked the center point. I'm going to enter 2 as the radius for no reason other. It's just an arbitrary length. That's a 4-inch diameter circle with a 2-inch radius. If I want to check that, I use my quick tool measurement over here in the utilities palette. And I can do this one and click on it. I could do yeah. Otherwise, you can also see that if I select it here, it'll show up on the properties panel what maybe the size is. There's the radius and diameter showing up on pop. So that's another nice thing. Just having the properties palette over here docked is that maybe it minimizes how much measuring you have to do, but I still use the measurement a lot. Okay, so there's an object to zero in on in my window. So that's all. I'm just gonna leave that here temporarily. And I'm gonna go back to my layout. And you can see there it is. Like when you jump back to yours, it may not be in view. And the way I find it is I have to actually like, I can while I'm out here on paper space, I could make this just a little bit bigger. You could make your viewport be your entire page, and then you could this I'm adjusting quite a bit because I usually using my viewport just to show the objects that I need to show. So I'm constantly resizing my viewports when I'm detailing my drawings to show everything that I need to show and adding more, and I can add more viewports to this thing, and we'll get into that a little bit later. I just wanted to get a kind of a flyover on what a viewport is doing and kind of get our head wrapped around that earlier rather than later. And so there is my object. That means if I double click in here, I can now like move this into position and kind of and I'm scrolling here and it's like scaling it and I could center it up. But what I really want to just apply is a one-to-one scale on this. Not that I'm always going to keep my viewports at 1-to-1, that because I will change these a lot, the actual scale of my viewports, so that it fits on paper. But right now, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go down here and select a 1-to-1 from my status bar. That's going to resize to 1-to-1. I'm going to try not to scroll anymore for a minute. I'm just going to click and like pan this over maybe to center of my paper, just because. And then I'm going to go down here and lock that. And then this is critical to learn too, is that generally when we pick the scale that we like and we're working away and fitting it on paper, then we'll lock that viewport down so I don't sit there and mess up the scale continuously every time I scroll. So now when I scroll, even though I'm in the viewport, it's actually moving my paper like it would if I was out here. And this is how scrolling works when you're in the paper space. But even until you lock down the scale that you want to just leave, um, if you don't lock it, it'll just continually like always be scaling. And so this is the way I kind of just like lock down the scale that I want and then move on with what I'm doing now. I've just got it as a target. So I know that my viewport is looking, pretty close to where the XY coordinate points are. And the origin point just kind of lives in here. But with that being said, all this does is help me like have a kind of a visual aid while I format the paper. So that's what we're jumping into now is that page setup manager process of formatting this paper. This is an unformatted paper. I have no idea how it would plot or print. I mean, I can check that. You can print, I can go to print here, but this thing hasn't been formatted. So it's just if I like I don't know, it's gonna ask me, well, what am I gonna print? I have really nothing set up. If I preview this is what that's going to look like. You might think that this looks, hey, that looks pretty good. I'm like, I just can't vet for sure that that is the correct size of paper that I want to plot or print. So I have to format it. So I'm going to cancel this for a minute, and I'm going to show you where the page setup manager is. To be able to use this quick access print button here, or Control P might be what you'd use, like you would on a Word document. It works in Inventor too, or sorry, AutoCAD. Just Control P to print is what I use a lot, or that quick access icon. But this is actually hoping that you've already done. This is already assuming that you've done maybe just set up the properties to print, and we haven't yet. So I don't use this yet until I've set up the properties. So oh sorry, it's even I meant to hit cancel. So I'm going to set the properties, and I showed you two places where that lives, and there's going to be more. It might be under Output tab, but let's see. I'm going to set up the properties under the print icon here. And there's page setup. So this is where this is one way to get to this dialog box, the page setup manager dialog box. Shows that I have initially my two layouts that are really undefined. I think that's why the asterisk is there. They just haven't, I mean, they kind of give me an indicator like, hey, these haven't really been formatted for use necessarily. Okay. I showed you that I usually get to it by going down on that lower left where my model and my layouts live, and I usually right click this, and it just has an expandable menu that is the page setup manager. It also has where I rename. I don't generally keep these as layout 2, layout 3. These might become sheet names in a real drawing, like a sheet 1. I don't know. They might just have a drawing number and a sheet name in industry. Right now, I'm probably going to name them the size of the sheet later, but first, all I want to do is do the page setup manager. And it opens the same dialog box that I found under the A and under the print selection. So it looks exactly the same. What I need to do is I'm working with layout 1. And so I'm going to make a new one that's going to really define layout 1's printing preferences or plot styles or page setup. So here we go. It says I got to give it a name. I think what we did in class is ASME inch A size. That might be redundant because if I said ASME A size, I would already be like, oh, that's going to be in inches. But early on when we're learning this, maybe helpful to see inch, and then on my metric ones, I'll write metric in like an A4 size. So I'm already planning on not, hopefully not confusing us which template is inch and which template is metric because we're going to make both. But down the road, so I'm going to call it this. It says which, start with what. Okay, I haven't really said any, so I'll just start. It's okay if like layout one is what I start with. Okay, there's my new name. In class, I showed you that this is how you would print to our printer in the back of the classroom is select that room 198 printer that should show up in your dialog boxes here too. For turning in assignments though, it'll always be a drawing to PDF for me. Yeah. So drawing to PDF is how I want this page set up to be. Drawing to PDF, new name. Now let's go through and pick the paper size that I'm going to print. When I use this layout or when I'm using this template and this particular layout, I want it to be on 8.5 by 11-inch paper. I'll show you what we've got options. We've got a lot of different paper sizes here to format this layout to. There isn't one that says ASME, so ANSI is the one I want to use. And I use this full bleed one, which just means it's considering the paper all the way out to the very edges of the paper. I like this because it doesn't apply any like your printers want to print with margins to protect you from having stuff run off the page. But in this case, we're gonna build our own margins into our template. And so we just want to actually have the plotter and printer just read our pages out to the very edge. And margins on a I should say, yeah, margins are what we'd be normally printing with Word documents or whatever. We'd always be considerate of our margins and have those correctly formatted. In the drafting world, the margins maybe are the outside the border, we might say, like outside of the border of the drawing. It's kind of this area where notes can be made that aren't, it's like industry, like maybe specific notes can be made outside the border that don't apply to the drawing, but they're like informational notes. And so some places will use the outside the border as kind of this like informative area to write some notes that don't apply to the drawing. It's kind of hard, it's interesting how that's used in different places outside the border. But that's why in drafting we're going to build our own borders so that we can use outside and inside the borders, and anything that's inside the borders is going to be controlled by the notes and the title block and all the specific notes that are probably following a standard. And outside the notes can be helpful. Outside the border can be helpful little notes like see this file for some help on this. It can just be like a little insider specific little note area that doesn't apply to the drawing and doesn't affect anybody that would be reading the inside the border drawing. That's strange to think of, and we'll get it once we draw a drawing with, or once we build our template with the border on it. So, long story short, here is that my full bleed is what I want to use, and I could choose either one. The A side, they have two A size ones here, and it's just the difference between one that's already set up for portrait versus one that's already set up for landscape. It doesn't matter which one I pick in this particular box, as long as I pick the correct A, I could pick either one. So here I've picked the portrait one. The ruling one that's actually going to rule and actually plot and send a PDF is what's going on down here in the drawing orientation. So I feel like this doesn't mess you up too much to pick the wrong one here. We are plotting the layout, so we're not going to try to pick windows or extents or do any kind of like custom type of plot. We're establishing a layout plot here. So we keep the scale at 1:1. We don't want to apply a scale on a scale. My drawing might be scaled half size. I don't want to then add an additional scale to that. Like I take care of my scaling in the actual like paper space, and I don't want the printing preferences to start to add additional scale. So I always scale whatever that drawing is that I did in my paper space to 1:1. And that's a little confusing too. I mean, we draw in model space in 1:1, then we go to our paper space and we apply scales to fit to drawings. Then when we come to plot, we don't want to apply any other scales. We just want to use the scales that I put on in my paper space. So 1:1 is what we leave this. For my class only, I like this as my plot style, which is a colored PDF, is what this ACAD.C, this might stand for color, I don't know. this is the one that I use, the .ctb, ACAD.ctb is what is going to be, it's going to, what it's going to do is when I export this or when I say okay, and I had something that I did want to send to PDF, it's going to include the colors, and that's what I want. It's a way for me to verify your layers and stuff. So traditionally, maybe in the industry, it might just we might set this to a monochrome so that anything we sent to plotter or to a printer or to PDF would just be in black and white. But I'm going to have this right now. I think I said that once I have a PDF, whatever PDF manager I have on my desk or on my computer, I can usually select just like you could with any Word document, just select black and white and don't do the color. So I didn't change anything here. I want to see line weights. I want to see plot style. Okay, just so I left everything. This is going to be landscape primarily. This is going to be an A size sheet that I use in the landscape orientation. So then I just say okay here, and this is just what I've done is format this. This is just me setting up a format for this paper, and I say okay. Doesn't look like I've done much, but it does show up as now I've got this like existing format that I could use. So if I select that, I'm going to set current. So layout one is going to become this new like format here. And I set current if I choose it, and there it is. I can even see it like change the paper behind me because now it's actually formatted the way I wanted it here. So then I say close on this. And then I come back to this and take a look, and it definitely looks different. Like it kind of moved around a little bit. I could I could move this into the center a little bit more for right now. It's not really critical where that viewport is on here. I'm not like perfectly placing it in the center at all, and I'm not even really concerned about the size of it. I think I told you earlier that generally your viewport's probably going to be sized down to just be what you're looking at. It might be like if it was a circle that I was trying to put on this print, I might probably move this viewport in to be like this, and then I might utilize the drawing space that I have to do a view of something else by adding another viewport, which we will do later. But yeah, to add another viewport is one of these options up above, and we'll get to it. But for right now, I think I just kept this roughly in the center. And the last thing I kind of showed you to kind of verify, like, and this isn't something like I kind of trust what I did is good, but I think in class what I showed you is if I was on this zero layer that's going to draw in black right here, and I pick my rectangle command because I can draw here out in the paper too. So even though it's kind of a paper space and it's even off the paper over here, I can do stuff out here. I can make notes out here. I can use this as like a place to, almost collect some data if I needed to. But what I wanted to show you is I'm going to draw this rectangle, and that's just a click and then start pulling away to draw this rectangle, whether I draw from the bottom right or the top left. I tend to, what I want to do is like replicate this rectangle to be the actual paper size, which is in this direction in a landscape would be 11. And then we tab over to the other window. So this has two inputs to draw a rectangle, a width and then a height here maybe by 8. Oh, 8.5, 8.5 by 11. Yeah, 8.5. That sounds right. Then I just hit enter, and this is a rectangle that is 8.5 by 11. That's actually a sheet size too. So when I move this over to here, it should match kind of roughly. And this is just a quick check that I have. Um, this actual visual paper, doesn't have any grips on it. I think I've repeated that a few times, but there's no grips here. There's grips on the viewports, but there's really no grips on this. It's just this kind of like backdrop that we use, kind of like a backdrop that I make sure that my stuff fits within that backdrop. That's where it's going to want to pull the drawing, the print and PDF from. So what I did is I did a move command, and I kind of discussed that order of operations kinds of matters. Like when I have objects that I want to mess with, generally I think of the command first and then pick something. Okay, this one. And I just want to move this rectangle. So I'm just going to only choose it and say enter. And then it wants to, anytime you move something or copy something, it wants to know by what is the base point of and sometimes it doesn't matter where I copy from. In this case, I'm just going to pick this upper corner, zoom in a little bit here. There's the corner, the little box endpoint. And so now I have a grip of it, and it just lets me move it to where I want to go. And what I did is I kind of like zoomed in, like moved my cursor, zoomed my cursor, and I just placed this box close to where it looks like it matches that. All this is a kind of a check that, hey, look, the 8.5 paper that we formatted in this world is 8.5. So this should print good. As long as I bring in my template that I'm going to build now and it fits on where this paper is, should be ready to print to a PDF for an A size, ASME A size sheet in landscape. So that was just a visual check. I'm going to select that and delete it. And I'm going to leave this now here. This one is formatted. The last thing I'm going to do, which I don't think we got to, I think that's where we got to in class and I ended up out of time. So this video picks up from there. I'm gonna name this. So I generally don't keep it named as layout one. I'm actually gonna right click here. I showed you that's where I get to the manager for one, but it also is where I rename. So now that I've actually done some work here, I want something visually to show me on my, to me, I don't want to just see some random layout one, layout two. I'm gonna rename this thing. And so I just click rename and I'm gonna say this is I don't know, it could just be ASME A size. And then just hit enter on that. So now instead of being layout one, some random name, it's ASME A size. So when I pull up this template, which I'll go ahead and save, I'll just hit the save because I've got it as a DWT. I'm just gonna hit save. So my work that I've just done for that print is done. It's an ASME A size. Perfect. If you write ASME A inch size, that's okay. We're gonna start to realize that unless it has an A and a number behind it, it's definitely just a standard template and not the metric one. But let's do it to layout two. So what I didn't get to yet is that I think I've mentioned several times that A size and B size is going to be our pretty much our main drawing papers layouts. So I'm going to go over to layout two, and its viewport is kind of like close to where my object is. It I haven't gone into this layout yet, so it still kind of has all the problems. It's got an unformatted paper size and it's got a viewport on the wrong layer. So the first thing I'll take care of is get that viewport to the right layer. Make sure I'm in paper space, double click out here, maybe escape, and then click that and then push that thing from here over to viewport. So that's first step for me is get that viewport on the right layer so it doesn't print. Our viewports in our layer properties are set not to print viewport. Oh, I didn't do that here. Sorry. I imported a different set, maybe. I think these are all the same, though. I just need, oh, I'm glad I checked this because I have paper. I don't want construction. I think I may have been doing something a little bit different, the way I brought in my layers on this particular drawing than we did in class. But either case, I'm glad I checked this because I don't want my viewport to print. I don't want my paper to print. And I don't want my construction lines to print. And that's really everything else was on, ready to plot and print. So close that now. Cool. I'm glad I checked that. And now I can double click into the window, double click into model space now. There's my, I'm just going to pan over here. I'm just going to click and pan this thing kind of into the middle. It's at a 0.69 scale. So maybe I should have done this first. That's pretty close to the center. That's my same little circle. Yeah, I'll lock that down right now. Um, as a side note, I do like once it is my common practice to on my template files, and if I just have a single viewport like this, it is pretty common for me to like lock those down. And so when I open my templates, I generally know my viewports are locked, and they're generally locked pretty close to the origin point as a kind of a rule of thumb. And so that's why what you're seeing me do is kind of my standard practice is like you just lock it. When I come in and I need to actually do something with it, I'll unlock it, scale it, move it. But for like the way I save and kind of just if I'm ever done working on a template, I usually just lock down my viewports, however many of them I would have maybe. So that's what I did here is just lock that down. This might not be where this totally lives. I'll jump back out here to paper space and maybe I'll do a quick little check here. See, what I'll do is this is going to be a B size sheet. That's 11 by 17, 17 inches wide by 11. So maybe before I actually format this one, I'll show you, maybe we'll get an idea of how close this like random formatting matches an 11 by 17 rectangle. So where I did that at the end of the last one, I'll do it now first. So I'll be like, how close is this? So I'm out here in paper space. I'm going to draw the same kind of rectangle, but with the B size sheet dimensions, which if you don't have them memorized, you will. It's an 11 by 17. So 17 wide, tab by 11. It's a bigger sheet of paper. Our printer in the back of the classroom will print this size. So there's an 11 by 17 sheet of paper. And that's what I want this layout to be formatted to. So if I do the same thing where I zoom in here and grab move, grab my object, enter or right click, specify base point, move this over like I was doing over here, place it roughly here. You can see that if I really was trying to plot a B-size sheet, this layout isn't going to be anywhere near plotting to a B-size sheet. So let's format this thing. This is clear, a clear re that's how big my paper should be. That's how much space I should have available to start putting uh, stuff on a B-size sheet. So let's format this thing. Where I do that is I like to right click and go to this page setup manager. There's the ones I have options to. Maybe I'll say I'm going to make a new one. Start with what? I'm gonna name it a different name too, but just kind of pay attention to both these boxes here. First, I'll name the name. I think the last time I called it what? Let me move this just a little bit. ASME inch A size. So I'm just gonna kind of keep the same. ASME dash inch dash B size though. Yeah. That's going to be the difference. What I want to choose is what to start with. Well, we did a lot of work already on the A size one, so I'm going to start with the A size one. Start with that one. Okay. So now it's like, well, this is all the stuff you did on the A size one. Yeah, it has the color, it has drawing to PDF. Of course, it has a different name, a unique name. It's got that A size sheet. I need to change that for sure. So that's the first thing, even though I want to change this to B size. So it's just the full bleed ANSI full bleed B. So there's two options. I'll pick that one. That's fine. It's still going to be driven by this landscape. Perfect. I want that layout. I don't want to change the scale. I want it to be color and then leave everything else the same. I'm just going to say, okay, there it is. And then it shows me here that the current layout is layout 2. Yep. I'm going to choose ASME inch B size that I just created and say set current. Bam. And that is formatted my backdrop of my paper to be accurate. So I'm going to say close on that. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. Of course, it moved it like, it didn't move it like where I thought it might move it, but it moved it. And if I want to move my little box to make sure, right click or press enter, corner, drag it up. Quick little check. Yeah, that's 11 by 17 paper now. Love that. I don't really need this though. I just need it as a check. I'm going to delete it. Technically, I could put it on a construction layer and leave it, but I just don't need it. And then I've got this little viewport, which I can move just by grabbing a grip, bringing it in. Sure, I'll just bring it in the center. I don't really need to resize it. That's great. Shows me that I've got I could actually drag this out a little bit. Like sometimes I have these fill the drawing area if it's just a single viewport. Of course, you can kind of see I'm strategically leaving a border, but if I click back in here, the whole grid will fill up, I think. Or maybe it won't unless I unlock it, and then I'll scroll. And now I will like go back to a one-to-one. This is not necessary to do, I did. And I'll lock it. Okay. Then I'll click back out here. Okay. B-size sheet. Excellent. We just need to rename it. Down here to rename. ASME B size. Love it. 11 by 17 sheet of paper ready for printing. 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper ready for printing. I'm going to save this. The template's getting pretty close to done. The last thing I want to do is just go ahead and get rid of this circle. I really don't want this on my template. It was just for some orientation. So when I go back here to now, it's disappeared. I'll undo that for a minute. Okay. I want to show you that when you're in here, I think I told you that you're looking into a window of model space, especially when you click in here. I'm in model space. I should be able to delete this from here too. So if I delete this, and then I click back out here, I'm back on paper space now. It shouldn't be in the model anymore either. See, that shows you the power of that window. It actually is viewing in here. And what you do in that window does have effect in your model space. Different scale sometimes going on. So it fits in the paper, but you absolutely have control over the model space through the window. Another little thing that I didn't show in class. I'm going to undo that a little bit. I'm going to put it back in there. There's the circle back. It's just me hitting the undo button up at the top, quick access several times. But the other thing I wanted to show you is a lot of people do prefer, once we start dimensioning and adding text, it is really important that we do it through the viewport. But sometimes people like to work like I'm gonna double click into the viewport here. It's locked, but I know I'm in the viewport because it says model and I have my navigation thing show up there. Some people like to work through paper space, uh, but they don't maybe they don't like to be in this environment where it looks like paper and it's gray and it's got the white grid paper, graph looking paper. So there's an option down here on your status bar to actually like once I'm in the viewport, if I just want to zoom in from here and make it look like model space, since I'm in model space once I'm in here. Um, to zoom into that, it's down here on your status bar, and it's the maximize viewport right here. So it's like these little functions right here are really important on the status bar. Of course, the scale is really important, being able to lock it down, making sure that something's annotated means it's going to be an adaptive thing, that it's going to apply the scale that you have on your drawing, and it's gonna do some automated help for you here. These little pinwheel icons. I only have one on because I don't have any annotated objects in there, but I do have some annotated anyway. But this little one, maximize viewport. If I click on this, I should get this. I get like I feel like I'm in the model space. Down on the status bar says I am in the model space. But what I have is this nice, cool little blue window border. When you see that show up, you know that what you are doing is you're essentially looking through the viewport in paper space, but you've got the background of model space. And for me, this like feels more clear of what I'm doing. Like when I go to maximize my viewport, this is generally how I work. I generally work this way when I'm working in paper space, but I want to make changes to my model, or I want to add dimensions, or I want to add text. I actually do it through here. And if I really back up and say, how do I really model? I would say, and then down here is how you return to the paper space, minimize viewport. I go back out to here, and it really takes you out and back into paper space here, back into the layout that you were driving into. But I would say this is how we're going to operate here in this class is I'm going to do all my drawing on my models and my objects right here in model space. I'm going to use my center lines, my hidden lines. I'm going to use all my line types right here, my object lines, phantom lines, section lines, hatching. I'm going to do most of my work here on my drawings here. Then I'm going to be happy with how everything looks visually, and I'm ready to take it to paper. And then I'm going to say, okay, now I'm going to go to my paper space. I'm going to make sure my viewport is zoomed in on what I just drew, and it captures all the details that I drew. And then I'm going to actually double click in here and maximize this. And from here, I'm going to go start now adding dimensions to my drawing. And then I'm going to add dimensions and text and leader lines and maybe some notes. I'm going to do that all through here, this blue window pane viewport into model space. I'm going to add all of that, and then I'm going to come back out to here. And what I'm going to see is I'm going to see my model that I drew in model space. I'm going to see my dimensions that I drew looking through a viewport. And that's going to help those things be annotated, that they will, as I scale my drawing, my text will actually say the same size, a legible size. I don't want to add what I'm kind of getting into the weeds about here is I don't want to add, I like to address this earlier in the semester than later, but I don't dimension my stuff here. This is dimensioned at 1 to 1. Even if I added dimension lines while I'm dimensions and text for dimensions or whatever, if I add them here, they're going to be at 1 to 1. And then when I jump back over here and I start doing a scale to fit, it's going to start scaling my text as well. So it's really a strategy of CAD to, you want to scale your objects to fit on your drawing, but you don't want the text to scale because you got to be able to read it when it's printed or in a PDF. So that 1/8 inch, so that's why it's just a workflow that we have to get memorized, is that dimensions and text are going to be added through the viewport into model space. And so you'll see me operate that way as I do drawings. The last thing I need to do on this template before I really start drawing a template, I've addressed both my layouts and they're saved. I think I even showed you when I clicked into here, I was going to get rid of this and delete it out, back out. I'm going to save that now. So now I have 0 circle, but I kind of have my bearings in my viewport kind of figured out. There's my X and Y, red and green line. So I feel good about these. They're kind of positioned to where if I draw on that upper coordinate, it's going to show up here probably. And then I need to do one more little formatting thing. I'm still programming the program. The last thing is on the annotate tab. And the reason I'm doing this is because if I go back to the assignment that we're going to work on, like this is kind of where we're headed. And this is what I want to have turned into me. It has text on it because it's just like it's like a title. It's like a really basic title block. That's what we've got here. And so there is text involved in this. So in order to complete this assignment, I need to get the text formatted correctly. And so while I'm in a template, this is where I would set up some text styles. So where you do that is move over to your annotate, not this annotate tab, but you could get to it here for sure from this drop-down list, but I'll show you where I generally do my formatting for text is on the annotate tab. Because really we have to format. I mean, CAD isn't formatted for ASME out the gate. I have to format it for it a little bit. So I'm going to format the text. And then eventually when we start doing dimensions, I need to format some dimension rules. And I might need to format some leader rules and some table rules. So all of these technically have like default formatting in them already. And I probably need to customize that formatting for ASME standard. And so how I do that is a couple different ways. Like the very top dialog. So I'm just looking at this one palette of text right now on the annotate tab. So this first one, and I kind of sometimes when I go to formatting these, I kind of work from left to right, like I'd read a book. So the first thing I'm going to do is like get the text that I need to write height. You can see that right now, if I wrote any text on here, it's going to be 0.2 high. The text height is going to be 0.2. And we're going to call it that's a standard text style. If I do this drop down list, already in like default of what is loaded, they've loaded me an annotative one with that cool little pinwheel that I always say is of high importance, and they've got me a standard one that seems like it's kind of dulled down and dumb and isn't a smart text style. In order to like add or change these, and I could have dozens and dozens of different text style if needed. We keep it pretty simple in ASME. We like capitalized writing and we like 0.125 text height, and we like for big notes, we like 0.2. So double, we like one size of text, and we like a double size of text, and we like Arial type text font. We like Arial font 0.125, and then we also like Arial font 0.2. So in order to add more and make as many as you wanted, it's a manage text style, and then it opens this dialog box. That's one way to get to it. That's probably the way I usually get to it. But I also know that this little teeny little arrow down here is also going right to that modification toolbar. I probably use this one more than the drop down. Not to say. I use the drop down when I'm actually picking which one to use at which time. And I probably use this one when I actually set some new styles. But so it says the current style is standard. I'm going to make a new one, but I'm going to select the one that I kind of want to copy. It's kind of like when we did the page setup manager. I could pick which one to kind of use as a base. I want to use the annotative one. Never do I use standard, just a dumb, sorry, it's not dumb, but just kind of like not smart. Is that better than dumb? I don't know. I want one that's I feel like a smart text that's going to scale and apply. It's going to help keep my text the right size when I'm scaling my drawing. So I'm going to I want to use as a base an annotative style. I'm going to create new. I got to give it a name. Everything's got to have a name, right? This is ASME, and this is uh, sure, ASME inch. I keep saying that, and then 0.125. Not inch, but INCH. Let's do that. So this one, I just have a real visual cue in when I look at the names of my text styles that this is 0.125. So that's just going to make sense to me that this is going to be Text height is 0.125. So I'm going to select it and just make sure that it's Arial. Yes. Font style, sure, regular. I'm not going to do bold or bold italic. Nope, I'm just going to do regular. It's annotative. Yes, that's super critical. Match text orientation to layout. I don't think I have to click that to match text orientation to layout. Maybe. Just leave that one unchecked right now. And then paper text height, I want it to be 0.125. I think it'll apply some decimals once I hit enter there. Yeah, 0.1250. I'm not going to do any effects of this. Like there are reasons why I would do this if I'm drawing isometric stuff and I need the text to kind of go in an isometric plane. Don't worry about that yet. And then say set current, and then say close. And that is ASME inch. And this should be all I should. I shouldn't have to worry about this bottom dialog box that didn't change. This is the one that I want. Yeah, and it's selected here. I want to do one more. I want to do the 0.2, so the double size standard. So I'm going to do another manage text styles, whether here or there. And I'm gonna actually create a new one. I want it to be annotative, so I'm gonna say new. This one is ASME inch, but it's 0.2 size. I call it double the size of the regular print of the regular text, but technically that would be a 0.25. And I think our text just says ASME considers their double size font to be 0.2. So for whatever reason, it kind of bugs me. If I doubled that, it'd be 0.25. But this is good enough. Then I just need to make sure I change this to a 0.2 text height. Apply that and say, okay, I'm not going to set that as the current. I want my other one. I'm just going to say close. It's just so what I've done is, oh, maybe it did. Maybe I did accidentally set it. I'm going to go down here and choose the one that I've created that's 0.125. So I have these two different text heights now. And I'm going to say, okay. So I'm going to save that. That is a finished, that is like, oh, I mean, that is almost a finished template. So I'm gonna stop this video and then I'm gonna make the one on actually doing the assignment with some drawing. So catch you on the next one.